The language group we chose was Laotian, or also known as Lao, from the country of Laos.
สบายดีทุกคนพวกเราสิเว้าเกี่ยวกับภาษาลาวว่ามันต่างจากภาษาอังกฤษจังใดและพวกเราสิเว้าเกี่ยวกับปัญหาที่คนลาวมีกับภาษาอังกฤษ So right here is the Laotian letters. Here is the English pronunciations or the English letters to what I just said. And then this is the English translation.
Yindi Torn Hop, welcome to the background information slide. So some origins of the Laotian language. It was created in the 14th century from the Lan Xang monarchs. They paid scholars to create a new script. It was mostly taken from it is part of the Thai language, and it comes from the Thai Cade language family, but has a lot of French influences on some of the words and sounds in the language. So for example, the word chocolate, you can look on the side, you would see the Lao word for chocolate, and the pronunciation under it is sakolid, so it's kind of similar to the French word of chocolate. There are 6 main dialects of Lao. The most common is Venetian or Vientiane Lao, but the other ones include Northern Lao, Northeastern Lao, Central, Southern, and Western. And while there are 6 dialects, if you're fluent and a native speaker of Lao, you'll most likely understand the first one, the Vientiane Lao. So approximately 800,000 people speak Lao as a second language, and around 3 million people speak it as a first language. And they speak that not only in the country of Laos, but also in northeastern Thailand, Australia, Cambodia, Canada, France, and America.
So writing systems. Laotians use a writing system known as Abugida. It's a syllabic alphabet. There aren't any spaces between words, but the spaces are usually located after the phrase or sentences. Unlike in Laotians also have words can be repeated. So for example, if someone wants to say come eat, you would say gin gin. So the first word would be gin, and then the second word would have a symbol called a galat, which symbolizes a repetition of the word. Words, phrases, and sentences are written from left to right. It consists of symbols for consonants and vowels. Vowels are placed all over, so above, below, around. It contains 6 tones. The alphabet is modeled after the old Khmer script, which is based on the Mon scripts. And French-based systems are used when writing English letters to words, but there will be variations in English pronunciation or English spellings to Laotian words, such as kon. Someone can spell kon with Khon or Kon, which means person. And right here is the Laotian alphabet. So ga, kha, nga, ja, sa, for example. So ga gai, ka kai, ka koi. So ga gai. So this would be a picture of a chicken. If it was like an elementary alphabet, it would definitely show a picture of a chicken, an egg, a buffalo, a cow, a cup, etc.
Lao is spoken not just in Laos, but also northern Thailand. This variation goes by the name Isan.
Isan.
Another regional variation is Vietnamese, which has some vocabulary and tonal differences. Lao has many similarities to Thai, however, they differ in vocabulary and pronunciation due to the other language influences.
Some interesting facts about Lao are Buddhist monks should not have physical contact with women. Women should not smoke cigarettes, but a man is allowed to do so. When telling a person to come near you or to beckon them to you, you would do so by facing your fingers downward. You should not point directly at the person. The use of nope demonstrates how much respect you have towards another person. You would do so by placing your hands together as when you are praying and then bowing. So, and a interesting fact about that is that the depth of your vow will demonstrate or indicate how much respect you have towards that person.
So, phonology is a study of how sounds are organized and used in their natural languages. So, we're going to compare the Lao language to the English language, specifically the vowels and consonants. So, in the Lao language, they have 10 vowels and they can be short or long. And the vowel length can distinguish between otherwise identical words. They have 23 consonant phonemes. All are used at the beginning of syllables, but only some can be used as final syllable positions. In the Lao language, the phonological structure of a syllable word is fixed, and the consonant vowel constant does not have a final constant sound, but there cannot be two. And so, versus that in the English language, there are 5 vowels that make up 21 different sounds, and 21 consonants that can make up 18 different sounds made from them. And these include hard and soft sounds from the letters. Some letters make the same sound in the English language, and we also have blended consonants. So those are 2 letters put together. There's different dialects that can change the way you pronounce a word. So for the next slide, this is a chart of the Lao vowel sounds and the English vowel sounds, just as a representation and a picture of the difference between them. And as you can see, there's more vowel sounds in Lao than there are in English, and the pronunciations that go with them. So some phonology difficulties that people could have in the Lao language. The first one would be the following consonants have the same pronunciation as in English. So those are the letters and sounds B, D, F, H, K, L, M, and S. So therefore the other sounds that aren't similar could bring up some problems because those are not sounds that are in both English and Lao languages or vocabulary. Also, some of the letters might be harder to pronounce. Like, for example, the letter T would be harder to pronounce from someone learning English from a Lao speaker. And in Lao, they don't have blended consonants like in English, so that could struggle putting those 2 letters together. So, for example, CH, SH, TH, words like that, school, their lunch, they don't have vowel consonants, blended consonants in Lao, so that could be difficult. And inferences, mistakes can occur in clusters. So, for example, words like substitution, omission, and addition.
So here's an explanation of morphology in both Lao and in English. Lao is a tonal language, meaning that certain words may be pronounced in different tones, giving them different meanings. Tone marks are in the Lao writing system, so those show the change that you're going to be making to the word that you're saying. In Lao, most words are monosyllabic, so S is one sound that will not appear at the end of a word. Words are read syllable to syllable, and vowels may be on any side of the word, meaning they could be on the top, bottom, to the left, or right. Also in Lao writing, there are no spaces in between words. In English, we are not a tonal language. In English, your tone actually changes, or your tone can express emphasis or emotion, but not definition, and we have no tone marks or accents. Many English words have more than one syllable, but must be blended together. Words in English are written individually with spaces in between, and vowels and consonants are mixed together. Many of these are blends or digraphs, where the 2 letters form either a combination of sounds or a new sound altogether. Because of those differences, some difficulties that you might encounter with a Lao student would be due to those lack of tonal languages. It may be confusing for that native Laotian speaker to hear emphasis on American words. Perhaps you're saying a word too loud, and it might confuse that speaker. Maybe they think you might be saying something else. Understanding where the stress of the word falls, since English has no marks to identify stress, so just pronunciation of words and where the stress lies, because there's no way to tell it unless you're pronouncing it correctly. Words containing blends or digraphs may be difficult since they are blending together or recognizing a new sound that might come out of the words. For example, if you have the vowel team OU, it makes a different sound than if you had those individual vowels together. Especially with vowel blends, again, the new sound of the vowels could be very difficult for a native Laotian speaker.
Right, so the type of syntax that Laotians use is similar to English. We use subject, verb, object type of syntax, but subject is usually dropped when you're responding to someone. For example, Lao men nai ku. Lao is either he or she. Man is the verb, and then nai ku is teacher, so that would be the object. Whereas English, you use the subject, verb, object of the syntax, but the subject is not dropped. We use the same noun for whether it's singular or plural, whereas in English, you use a variety of plural forms for both regular and irregular nouns. For Laotian, the word Lao can mean he or she, but in English, there's different pronouns for pretty much everything. And instead of using, Laotians also use kong, which means of, and it shows possession, whereas in English, they use either apostrophe s or s apostrophe. We also use classifiers when we refer to nouns or amounts of nouns, and it can go either before or after the noun. So, for example, the word do is animal, clothes, or objects, and in English we use articles. Verb tenses don't change, but we'll have words that show either the past or the future. For example, you would say kai bai lao. So it would be, so lao is already, so I went already. But in English there are many verb tenses, and adjectives go after the noun, but in English adjectives go before the noun. Some syntax difficulties are, like mentioned earlier, in the morphology slide. Since there aren't spaces between words in Laotian, students might need to be reminded to put spaces between their sentences. I personally had an experience where, or I still do this, I jumble my words together. I might use a few spaces and then I'll jumble my words together. Students might also struggle with verb tenses, since verb tenses don't change in Laotian. For example, a child might say, I am go to the store, instead of saying, I am going to the store. Students might also struggle with irregular verbs such as eat, so eat, ate, eaten. Students may also use classifiers instead of articles, so they might code switch. So instead of saying oh, I want the cat, a child might say, I want the cat, for example. Students might also struggle with irregular forms of nouns such as mouse to mice. For semantics, Laotians use tones and context clues to determine meaning. Different dialects have different meanings for words like who or what. So the Vieng Dun dialect might use bai or pudai for who. But in Punhong, you would say puda to mean who. When writing words in English, there are many homonyms. So, for example, the word Lao, if you write it in English, it could mean he, she, an alcoholic beverage, but the tone would be Lao. The ethnic group would be Lao too. And Lao is to tell a story, so all those words are spelled with Lao. And then students there are also figurative language that show meaning, such as Nyai Tao Sang, which means big as an elephant. And we also use proverbs to teach lessons, and words can also be repeated to show emphasis or excitement. In English, there are many homophonies, such as homonyms, homophones, and homographs. It uses multiple forms of figurative language to convey meaning. Different dialects can also affect meaning depending on the region. Some semantic difficulties are homonyms. It may be challenging for students to understand. They might need context clues and background knowledge to understand those words. And figurative language, such as idioms, might be difficult for English learners to understand depending on their language because they might not have the background knowledge to understand the meanings.
So pragmatics. One interesting factor is that when comparing it to the US cultures, Laotians will typically be nice to the point where they will avoid disagreement with you during discourse. Another factor is the importance of what they call face. This represents the level of respect people have for you. So a Laotian will always consider keeping their face high. So in the community and when conversating with others, they will always look at this as very important. One more feature during discourse is the use of long pauses. So people conversating with you will find it completely normal to make long pauses. This website explained the lack of plurals, and as Linda also explained in the previous slides, this is especially important in pragmatics because you need to understand what the other person is saying, and you should be aware of, or for example, this example where cat changes to cat or many cat instead of cats. When in conversation, another thing to know is that Asians usually prefer to be called Asians and not Orientals. Pragmatics difficulties. The screenshot above shows an example of how Laotian students may say some things. For example, here it says, he is who, meaning who is he? He is teacher, meaning he's the teacher. He named what? What's his name? And he named Bunmi. His name is Bunmi. So students may avoid using their left hand to pass an object, greeting or touching. Students may avoid situations where they need to shake hands with the opposite sex. This website explained the lack of plurals. As I said, students and the teacher should be aware of this in the classroom. We also have to know that nouns and precede adjectives. So, for example, instead of saying red car, it would be a Laotian student may say car red. Lastly, the expression koi koi.
Kai.
Kai. This one?
Oh, kai kai.
Kai kai means slowly, and this is an expression they use in Lao, and it sort of means that they take time slowly. So this is especially important for teachers to know because you may notice that a Lao student may take their time when in classroom work or when they are eating.
So some communication rules for Lao, like mentioned before. So for the communications rules slide, like mentioned before, turn taking and wait time is very important. So it's important to respect others while they're speaking, and it's not uncommon for there to be a long wait time in between conversating or talking. Lao are often soft-spoken and reserved, and loud expressions of feelings are not common. Lao may respond in a way they assume one wants to hear regardless of what they personally believe. So that's another thing of respectfulness. So the word yes doesn't always mean agreement. It just could mean yes, no, maybe, and just out of respect. Avoid giving, refusing, opposing someone directly. So not a very confrontational communication, languaging. It's more of a very respectful wait time kind of situation.
Nonverbal communication. In Lao, a person should avoid pointing with the sole of their feet at another person. Using the left hand to interchange objects is considered taboo. People's head is considered very important, so you should not touch someone's head. When a teacher does it to a child, it may be considered a sign of endearment, but a child should not do it to an adult. It may be considered a sign of disrespect. Received gifts should not be opened in front of the giver. Laotian avoid direct eye contact. People will lower their head when talking to others, especially elders and monks. This may be more noticeable when younger women speak with men. Finally, Laotians will utilize utensils such as forks and chopsticks to eat rice and noodles, and while other food will be eaten with hands.
So some tips for teaching in addition to regular ESL strategies, specifically for Lao students, involve a lot of listening activities for native Lao speakers. These listening activities can model word pronunciation as well as how English words are read and also how English sentences are read, because it is so different from Laotian. Allow students to use Laotian letters to help them remember pronunciation of English words. So if they are writing something that they want to read aloud to the class, allow them to use their native letters so that they can remember what sounds the English letters make. Educate students, other students in the class to respect turn-taking, since this is such an important part of Laotian culture. And also students will most likely sit with their heels not showing, so please to be cognizant of that while you are setting classroom sitting expectations.
So underlying norms and values, like mentioned earlier, it is disrespectful to touch a person on the head. It's okay for adults to touch young children on the head, unless the child is a monk. So if a child is a monk, or if there is a monk, you're not allowed to touch at all whatsoever. It's disrespectful to touch a monk if you are female. When greeting, you put your hands together in a praying position and slightly bow your head towards the person. It's called a nope. So this girl right here this is a side view of the girl doing a nope. So her head is slightly bowed and her hands are in praying position. And right here is my cousin. Her name is Mimi, and this is the front view of the nope. So she is greeting her audience, because this was during the Lao New Year pageant. When receiving gifts from an older person, you also need to nope. When talking to someone of high rank or status, people tend to avoid direct eye contact, and women will avoid direct contact when they are talking to men. Laotians use high context forms of communication. So they use relational, and they use mostly nonverbal forms of communication more than they do with verbal communication. We use informal style of communication unless speaking to elderly or someone of high status. If we are talking to someone that is elderly or high status, we are usually more polite towards the person. And we use words such as I, pa, meh, etc. So what relationship words when speaking to older people or to strangers. And communication is usually indirect, and it's used to save face or reputation. And here are our references.